Hey guys, what is going on? February 18th, 2025. I got some hot takes for you here. I just listened to Mark Robinson, the CEO of New Zealand Rugby, with that man, Razor Robertson, the coach of the All Blacks. They were on News Talk ZB, chatting it up in New Zealand. They finally gave a definitive answer about what is going to happen with the All Blacks eligibility laws. Now, this has been talked about around the world, actually, for a long time. There were rumors that perhaps we would go the way of the Springboks. Yes, the two-time world champions. They have a unique eligibility structure. Basically, you can go and play wherever you want, and you're still eligible for the Springboks. Hard to say that it isn't working for the South Africans, given their aforementioned William Webb Ellis success back-to-back. But in this sit-down interview with the two most powerful men in New Zealand rugby, the conclusion was pretty clear. Just because it works for South Africa doesn't mean it's going to work for New Zealand. In other words, we are not going the way of the South Africans. We're going to keep the eligibility laws as they are in New Zealand. So in this video, I'm going to dive into it a little bit, and I'm going to give you a strong, clear opinion at the end of this video, so stick around for that. Essentially, though, we have something at the moment that I guess you could say it's a little bit of a concession, and that is the sabbaticals. They're going to continue. The example they cited was this man, Jordie Barrett. He's playing for Leinster, if you guys didn't know that, having a great season up north. And essentially, this almost felt like a little bit of a PR exercise, this Mark Robertson, Scott Robertson love fest. They were very much singing from the same hymn sheet, and they extolled the virtues of the sabbatical clause, where a guy like Jordie Barrett, who's racked up dozens of games for the All Blacks, well, he can stay centrally contracted with New Zealand Rugby, but go and ply his trade overseas, go to a top club like Leinster in the north, and then come straight back into the All Blacks. So essentially what they were saying in this interview was, we do have flexibility in New Zealand. It's not all doom and gloom. We got strong provincial rugby, but we are letting guys like Jordie go overseas, make some coin, make some big bucks, and still be eligible to pull on an All Black jersey. And it's great in terms of Jordie. There aren't that many Jordie Barretts, though, and I think it's really more those fringe All Blacks disappearing that's the problem. You're always going to have the big stars able to go overseas and rack up lots of money at the end of their careers. You are seeing blokes like Jordie who are still very much in their prime, arguably on the rise, maybe haven't even peaked yet. They're going to be doing these sabbaticals, but it's more those guys who maybe have played one or two games for the All Blacks. They're going to get tempted to set their families up with that big payday overseas, and they're not necessarily going to get the same sabbatical clause love that a guy like Jordie Barrett got. Jordie has a bargaining chip. That's all the caps he has for the All Blacks. That's his form. Yes, if you're an elite All Black in top form, you do have that bargaining power. Hey, give me my sabbatical. I'll come back. It's the guys who are not as capped as Jordie that they might just disappear without a sabbatical clause. And that is going to somewhat deplete the depth in New Zealand rugby. You look at guys like Leicester Fainga'anuku going overseas. He went over after just getting a few caps for the All Blacks, but the good news is he's come back. So examples like that are certainly heartening if you're an All Black fan, that maybe, sure, there's a little bit of a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, make some big bucks, but there is still that lure of the black jersey. So a guy like Fainga'anuku is kind of a good example to draw on, that there is still a pull there to play for the All Blacks. And I think the main takeaway from the sit-down interview is that if you completely go the way of the South Africans, Super Rugby is going to get decimated. I'm going to finish with that in a second. But let's talk about this man here, Richie. We did get a definitive answer. He is not coming home from Japan early, which I think is great. Keep building the depth here in New Zealand. Keep playing Damian McKenzie at 10. Yes, Harry Plummer, he's going overseas. He's going to the north at the end of the year because he knew he wouldn't get ahead of D-Mac, Beauden Barrett. Certainly not Richie if and when he returns. And it seems like Razor Robertson has kind of made peace with Richie doing his few years in Japan. And honestly, I think that's just fine. We're doing okay with Damian McKenzie. 10 out of 14 was not a bad return for the All Blacks last year. Let's not forget that McKenzie did get selected in the World 15 at 10, for what it's worth, from the World Rugby Awards panel. So he is excelling as an international 10, even if there are still a few teething problems. You have to think that he will only be smoother, more proficient, better with his game management this year. So I think if we can keep building the depth, and then Richie Mo'unga does return, I guess it would be 2026, second half of the year, play in 2027. If he's up to snuff, great, then we have tons of depth. And depth is the key issue here. So I'm not going to keep you in suspense any longer. I'm going to give you my take on all this. I think it's probably the right decision. There's no debating that for the South Africans it works, having their players in URC or top 14 or wherever the heck they want to go and then coming back to the Springboks. For some reason it works for them. I feel like it probably wouldn't work for the All Blacks. And the reason is that Super Rugby would get smashed. We're only just coming out of the hangover of losing the South African teams. That was a body blow to Super Rugby. And the product hasn't been top tier the last few years. I haven't been feeling it. I haven't been as excited. And I am a diehard rugby fan. This year I'm feeling it. Viewership is up. I'm even getting comments saying more Super Rugby coverage. I'm feeling that the audience is more invested in the competition this year. I also feel that the quality is very high this year. I feel the competition has really found its identity without the South Africans. Was it better with Springboks running around? Yes, I think it was. Clearly, it was a more competitive competition. It was tougher, better development for the New Zealand, Australian, Fijian, Pacific Island players. But Super Rugby Pacific has found its identity now. You see that in viewership and attendance, and you see it in the quality of the rugby, which has been excellent. So my view is we need to keep Super Rugby as strong as possible, have that depth. I think, unfortunately, New Zealand just can't afford to lose that. And at this moment in time, even though it's imperfect, probably the right decision has been made by New Zealand Rugby to stick with the current eligibility rules. But what do you guys think? Is this a huge mistake? I know some people think it is. Shout out your comments at me. I will read them. I will respond. I look forward to it. Guys, I will catch you there. And I'll be back for another one real soon, breaking down Super Rugby, looking ahead to round 6. Can't wait for that. All right, guys. Go the All Blacks. Catch you later. Bye for now.